Hello, IC community. I'm Massimo Albarello, and together with Luca Bertelli, I've been working on IC WebSockets, which enables your dApp frontend to interact with the canister backend via the widely popular WebSocket interface. Our project is targeted to developers building on the Internet computer. And the problem that we want to solve is that the Internet computer doesn't enable canisters to send live updates to their clients. A workaround that developers have been using is to implement their own custom puller, which periodically sends query calls to the Internet computer in order to get updates from the canister. However, this approach doesn't scale because it might overload the canister with query calls, and it might even become pretty expensive as soon as the Internet computer starts charging for query calls. IC WebSocket enables developers to create a bidirectional channel between each user and their canisters. And the best part is that this all happens via the traditional WebSocket API. We believe most developers in the IC ecosystem can benefit from IC WebSockets. However, in the beginning, we are focusing on all the ones building social networks, chat applications, and games. So if you're one of those, do not hesitate to reach out to us. Now Luca is going to show you how simple it is to embed the WebSocket functionality into your canisters.
Let's start from the client. We developed an SDK for JavaScript. First thing you have to do, you import our library. And if you are familiar with the WebSocket API that you already have available in the browser, it's roughly the same. So you can create a new WebSocket class and you pass the URL of the server that you want to connect. Then you have this other parameter, which is already defined also in the WebSocket API, but we can ignore it for now. And then we have some IC-specific parameters, because of course we need to know to which canister we want to connect. So we give the canister ID that we want to interact with. And then we also need to know the URL, the subnet or the replica URL that we want to use. So in this case, we want to use the mainnet. So we pass this URL. We already have the identities in place in the Internet computer infrastructure. So we can pass an identity, which is generated, for example, from the user's Internet identity, or another identity of your choice, or you can also decide to not pass it, and we will create a random identity under the hood to work with the Internet computer. Then you can decide your business logic. And again, if you are familiar with the WebSocket API, you will find those methods the same as the WebSocket API. And here you can define what you want to do based on the events that you receive. So when a WebSocket is opened, when you receive a message from the canister, when it's closed, and when you get an error. So this is the same interface as the normal WebSocket API. And then at some point in your code, you also want to send a message. So you simply use the send method as you would do for the WebSockets, for traditional WebSockets. Let's go to the backend now. So to the canister, we have a Rust example because we started developing the CDK in Rust. First thing, we define the business logic here. So we define the callbacks functions that the library is gonna call when there are these events. So when the canister receives a message from the client, the on message will be called, and so on. So you define your callbacks, you pass them to the initialize function of the CDK. And as you see here, if you are familiar with Rust on the Internet computer, you are gonna initialize the CDK in the init function of the canister. And then you need to expose some methods because the client and the gateway need to interact with the canister. So you have to expose these three methods, which are the methods that you would think about if you're thinking about a general WebSocket server. So there is a WS open method, WS close method, and WS message. And then there is an additional method that you normally don't have in a traditional WebSocket server, which is the get messages. This method, as you see, is a query call, and it's used to get the messages. If you want to send a message, so at some point in your business logic, in your code, you want to send a message, you simply call IC WebSocket CDK, WS send, and you pass the client ID, which is the principal, that to which you want to send a message to, and then your message. The same would work for Motoko, and will eventually work also on the TypeScript CDKs and Python CDKs.